Three, two, one. All you.
Boom. And salutations, y'all, and welcome to episode 10 of Core Office Hours, presented by the Systm. We welcome you wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in the globe, whatever your culture, whatever your language. Uh, we invite you to join us as we discuss core today and answer questions. Uh, this episode is brought to you by these three illustrious individuals. Look at these facilitators. So beautiful. We've got the young Keone Chong. We've got the young Mary Gribbin. And we've got the young Jose Caballer. And we're rocking with you today. We always invite you to like and subscribe as we embark on this adventure and this conversation. Today's episode, of course, is brought to you by CORE, Brand Strategy Foundations. What is CORE? CORE is a simple way to help any brand understand, prioritize, and focus on a clear vision and plan to help them achieve their goals. It's branding for the 21st century. How does CORE work? Well, CORE focuses on brand alignment. It focuses on the alignment between the culture and the essence of who you are, your goals, and what is driving your business, and your users, basically your audience needs. If you're really interested to learn more about CORE, check us out at coreismagic.com. Now, as always, CORE is brought to you by the Systm. So to be clear, what is the Systm? The Systm is a social learning platform. It's tools, community, and guidance to empower the next generation of creative leaders and builders to redesign the world. So now that we've got the intro out of the way, let's dive into the agenda for today. So we're going to keep it really simple, and we want to focus on trying to bring you as much value as possible today. So we're going to do our drop-in for about 15 minutes. We're going to dive into the download, and then we're going to open it up for the core Q&A. Lastly, we're going to end with the upload. And what we're going to try to do this week is we're going to try to keep this really, really tight. So we're going to try to end on time, which is at noon. And what we really want to do is focus a majority of the conversation around questions and answers, tactics, thoughts, advice, all of the things that we can help for you guys to understand core at a deeper level. So let's drop in. So our drop in today is going to be your name, your location, and this question. How have you found your most successful client engagements? So I'll model that for you guys. I'll open it up to Jose. I'm not sure if Mary's on the line. Mato is here. But I'm going to open it up for a little bit of sharing. So here's an example. My name is Keone Chong. I am located in Los Angeles, California. How have I found my most successful client engagements? I have found them through our network. These are generally individuals that I've had some level of a relationship with, or they have some level of relationship with the people within the team. So a great example is Formosa Group. They're a huge audio design studio here in Hollywood. They work on huge films, huge television series, huge video games. I mean, they really work on billion-dollar franchises. We got that client because one of my partners was in a band with someone that had worked for the company. And he had inside knowledge that they were struggling with trying to get their brand identity and website development done. And they were really confused on the positioning of the brand and how the brand should be articulated, all of those things. They shared that knowledge with us. He brought it to me. He asked for me to step in. I stepped in and made some of the early conversations around that. I built a friendship with one of their directors in one of the departments, one of their first departments, and the relationship just took off from there. But that's me. I'd like to open the floor to maybe somebody else. If anyone is interested, I'd love to see you raise your hand and or make a comment in the chat.
Yeah, I'll do one real quick, and Pape, you can share the one that you have there on the chat. For me, I'm Jose Caballer. I'm in LA. Those are the two first questions. I found that volunteering for nonprofits or for organizations led us to a really awesome kind of pipeline of clients, because I volunteered I volunteered for my alumni council at where I went to design school at Art Center College of Design, and basically helped them do strategy and communications for the council. And they said, wow, you're really good at this. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, thanks. And then from that, people that were in the council with me were like, oh, you should talk to this person. They're trying to get something done. But because it was inside already our design community, the businesses that we got introduced to were really creative and were other creative people. And that really snowballed. So from doing my first brand strategy engagement by volunteering, you have to go like every month for like, you basically had to invest like 10 hours a month into the council. But from there, we just kept on getting clients because it was a referral from that original, from that. So I would say probably about $2.5 million in revenue over 4 years came from just that one volunteer being involved in my community. Over the next 3-4 years, that many leads came through, and we were really able to build the business based on a lot of those leads. That's it.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
hello,
awesome.
everyone. Oh, sorry, Kenny.
No, come ahead, Pape. Join the stage.
Yeah, so Pape here. I'm reporting from Panama. And I would say I feel like since the beginning, I've been able to get better engagement. And I haven't had like really bad clients overall. And I think it's because mostly they reach out through Instagram, and they tend to be looking for a specific type of work that I do. But also every time someone contacts me through Instagram, no matter, like, I know it might not be a big client or it could be a small client, I always open the doors, and I try to open conversations to understand better and to build a true connection without thinking that this might lead to a work or not, because I feel like people are super connected, and I don't know if it was Simon Sinek who said that people don't remember what you do, they remember how you make them feel. So that's something that that's why I just always open the doors for anyone that contacts me, and even if I cannot do the work, I always find a solution through friends or someone else, and I feel like that opens the conversation that they will have when they talk about you. Eventually, and especially here in Panama, they're super small. They connect. You can connect like different communities. And one example would be, for example, Jose Guillermo, the owner of the real estate developers. He discovered me through one Instagram story that I was doing that was during the 36 Days of Time challenge 2 years ago. And he just contacted me and he said, I have no work to give you, but I would love to meet you. And I opened that door, and it gave me one of the best friends that I've had. He's like a brother to me. And now he is like so connected here in Panama that all of the clients come his way, So I think is that, like, just be authentic in social media. You never know who's watching. Like, you really never know who's watching you. And yeah, that's how I do it.
Beautiful share, Pape, and thank you so much for that. Would anybody else like to share? Roxana, maybe. I know you have an interesting story about a really powerful project that you're working on, right?
Yes. To be completely honest, all my work, I think, I've been getting it from referrals. Ashley, we work together with Diane. Now she's in this call too. And yeah, that also the internet, well, all the connections I made over the internet made it happen that now I'm working with Alex on his website. And yeah, and the most amazing thing happened because of that, that also I am now working with the Chorus Magic landing page. So yeah, it's like mind blowing. I cannot even express how much this means to me in words. So it's, yeah, just full of love.
And that's awesome. And thank you for sharing. I'd love to hear from, maybe Jaja or Emily, if you guys can hear, or Mato. Can you guys share how you guys have found some of your most successful client engagements?
Hi, yes. I have only started my business 6 months ago or 5 months ago. So it's literally everyone, it's just by word of mouth really. So previously I had worked with a colleague, and she started off her own business, and she said, "Oh, do you want to collaborate with me?" And she's a digital marketeer, so we work really well together. At the same time, I volunteered with some charity work as well. So like Jose saying, work with purposeful brands. So that's what I've been doing. And they have invited me to know so many inspirational people. And it's just by talking to them, really showcase who you are, what you can do to help, rather than to make money. I think the way how you position yourself is very important. So I position myself as in, I want to help you to reach your business goal, and I only help kind and innovative and ambitious brand, and that's what I want to work with. And this is the sort of clients I've been attracting. So it's very it's a very interesting journey. But I need to learn from you, Papi, because I have not had one single client from Instagram. I might need some help. But yeah, that's me.
Hey guys. All right, so I guess it's my turn to share. Thank you, Jaja. So I think like everybody else, a lot of my clients, at least as of lately, the last couple of years, a lot of them have been through building relationships. Really being social about the things that I do, the things that I know, the things that I've done. And usually the approach that I take is I never try to push anything on anybody. I always try to share my knowledge and give the right advice at the right time, and let that sort of just flow and let those relationships really build. And I think a lot of the biggest and the most rewarding clients that I've ever had have been relationships and friendships that have taken months and months and months, sometimes years to really flourish, and they turn out to be just amazing clients, because there's already that sense of trust and we know each other. There's this really nice feeling that we share, and it turns out to be a really great thing, a really relationship that keeps on giving, and then the referrals from them to other people of that same sort of tribe and the same sort of thing that they're looking for. They turn out to be really beautiful relationships, friendships, and clients in the end. I think for example, Corvus was a really interesting client in the way that we got introduced through our therapist. We went through therapy. We finished our sessions, and we finished therapy. And at that point, our therapist called us up and was like, "Okay, I think you guys need to work together." And we got connected. We talked, and we clicked really in a really interesting way. And even though that we are very much polar opposites, we work extremely well together. And there's a ton of trust there, right? And he refers me to people, I refer him to people, and it's this really nice relationship. And this is the same thing that I try to do with everybody else that I work with.
Thank you for sharing, Mato. And I'll read a few from the chat that were really awesome. We mentioned Pape, reporting from Paradise, Panama. Word of mouth and Instagram, he said. He said Instagram has been his biggest lead magnet. I believe I managed to get successful engagements because of the conversations I managed to open after they contact me. Bjorn, who's in Washington, he's found his most successful clients through word of mouth so far. Arsenije, in Belgrade, Serbia, he's found them through referral and word of mouth. Adriana in Mexico, also by word of mouth. Emily Hassan in the UK, her most successful, and it's still an open project, was a business coach who helped her create the first business in the first place. We've got Jason Perrier in Ontario, and he said that he's found his most successful clients through word of mouth by doing great work. Now I want to move forward and start getting clients outside of that by doing live streams on LinkedIn. Awesome, man. It's definitely about broadcasting. Arsenije. The best ones were second referrals from referrals. And Patricia, who says she's found her most successful client engagements through our network of friends and referrals and those who are open to the experience and trust us. And last but not least, let's add Ginder into this mix. She's in London, and she said old school method. An agency rang her who thought she was a good fit for her client. After inquiring, it turned out to be a broadcasting company, went for an interview and landed the job. The team was the most creative and forward thinking. Creativity, innovation, and UX method was a driving force in methodology. Plus I have dear long friends. So, there's a trend that we're starting to see in our shares today. And, I know that trend exists with me. I know it exists with Jose and Mary. But our most successful clients really are within our network. Our most successful clients are the ones that we share cultural values with. There's foundations of trust. There's foundations of respect, and they value you as an individual as opposed to you as someone who's going to just help me do this thing, right? The engagements aren't like, hey, I'm buying a refrigerator and you're like that thing. No, this is a process. This is a relationship. And this is this adventure that we're going on together. And that sounds exciting. Really excited for that. And really glad that you guys can really identify this stuff. Really powerful. So let's move on to the next segment of our agenda, which is, of course, core Q&A. So what I'd like to do is open the floor up for core questions. And we'll try to provide as much support and guidance for you in these new challenges. And what I want to do is I want to start off with something that Jose had shared in the chat earlier. And I believe this is a question that came from Facebook. And so, Jose, do you want to talk about that?
It's from Marcio Guerra in Portugal. He is new to core and he's doing it for a theater group in Lisbon. And he asked the question, I'll summarize him. He has 3 questions and I'm going to try to hit it very quickly and then let other people who are practitioners also answer. When building the adjectives or doing the adjectives for the brand statement, culture, voice, etc., clients, how should I focus the questions by themselves? Meaning he wants to know how to prompt adjectives other than like what are attributes to describe your culture. And I use examples like your culture is for example, your parents would be a creator of your culture. Where you went to school would be a creator of your culture. your community would be a creator, would create the adjectives for your culture. That's one way I do it. So imagine if you were to describe the family that you grew up in, what would you describe? And they would say, fun, studious, etc. That's for an individual, but that's also for a company. A company is usually the derivations of what got them to where they are for that. But things like voice, if you were a person, how would you sound? That's a way that I prompt. So I use examples on each of the keywords or each of the categories to prompt them. And I also give some, like I actually throw a few in and I say, for an example, and then I just throw fun, innovative, grounded, whatever they might be. I just throw a few. So I'll leave it to see how other folks here do it also.
Yeah. And I'll share the way that that I use prompts. When I talk about clients or customers, let's go through these three in particular. When I talk about culture, I talk about rituals, I talk about the behaviors, I talk about the expressions, and how these expressions are manifested. The way that I had learned culture in academia, and anthropological circles, is culture is really reflected in the manifestation of food, clothing, creative, and behavior and relationships. So those are prompts that I use when talking about culture. Like, how do we look? How do we feel? What are the things that we do? What kind of activities we are? What kind of energy are we bringing, right? These are all prompts that I use to instigate conversations around culture. When talking about the clients, I ask for them to think about their customers. Think about a customer. What's the last customer that you talked to? What were they like? What were their challenges? What were they thinking alike? What was their personality like? Tell me a little bit about them. And then putting them in that space where they can really focus then on the customer, and instead of feeling like they're trying to fill out a worksheet. And then for voice, one of the things that I do when they're stuck is I'd say, who are some celebrities or who are some characters that really reflect, what your energy is, or like what you're trying to say. Here's a great example. If we were doing this for the system, and I was facilitating a question around voice, and we had like stagnancy, like the group had was challenged trying to fill out adjectives. I'd be like, well, maybe are there cartoon characters, right? Is Luffy, does Luffy feel like he's a part of the community? How is Luffy's attitude? How would he sound? How would he come across, right? And Luffy is a perfect character to kind of reflect like the energy and the adventure and the excitement that we have in this community. But that's how I would focus the questions and how I would orient that conversation. Yeah.
Who else? Anybody want to share how they do it?
I think like in the question, there's a lot of focus on the adjective, and something that I do is try to step away from defining it in one word and let it become an open conversation. And then since I'm listening, I'm the one translating what they say into synthesized concepts that would be the adjective. So I think, I'm not sure if Marcio, you're trying to focus only getting a one word answer. And for me, I try to open it up. That's why I know the exercise says it's 45 minutes, but it usually takes me like 1 hour, 1.5 hours to finish the first exercise, because I open up like a big conversation. So that would be something that I do. And one thing that Jose does in the example with Alchemista is sometimes they start saying negative adjectives, and then you just translate that into the positive. Or if they're not doing that, they're not saying anything, just ask like what you don't like as the opposite, and then translate it to positive. That's something I do.
I love that. You can define through addition, And you can also define through subtraction, right? So who are we and who we are not? That's a powerful insight, and I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Pape. And let's keep this conversation going. I'd love to hear how other folks have really facilitated attributes and some of the tips that they use and tactics. Motto, you're a young strategist up and coming, and building really insightful strategy. Maybe you'd like to share, maybe Dexter.
I think for me, it's a lot of it is context. It's really understanding the context of their product, their service, where they're from, where they're coming from, what is the business supposed to do, how is it supposed to function, right? One of the main things that I always try to do before jumping into the exercise is talk to them about the business. Listen, tell me what you guys do. How do you guys do it? Why do you guys do it? I think primarily it's always, why did you guys start? Like, for example, I'm doing the strategy for this coffee shop here. Mm-hmm. One of the main questions that I asked in the very beginning before jumping into strategy was like, why did you guys do a coffee shop? How did the idea originate? Where did it go? How did it, like everything. I get as much information, as much context as you can. And then from there, you're gonna be able to have this really interesting guide of how to navigate through the culture, the voice, the impact, the X factor. Understanding that context is hugely powerful, and it's a good way for you to take any sort of negative words or negative comments or anything like that and really transform that into something that is positive. Okay, well, how does that align into what you want to do, into how the voice is supposed to sound, into what is your client's what is one specific client looking for? Really focus on one single problem, one single person, one single area. But you gotta have that context.
That's really powerful. I wanted to highlight that, he said that he asked the question of the story and why they started the business. And it actually, we actually did do that in the Alchemista example. I'm not sure it's in the instructions for the process. It just jumps to the brand attributes. In the brief, I think there might be like a timeline of the business. And I also knew the people fairly well because I'd known them for a while. They were friends and people that I know. So I think part of this conversation about how you meet, the people that you collaborate with, if they're coming from the community or you already know them fairly well, then it's easier to do. If you have a new client and you don't know them as well, asking that question to tell the story of the business and in advance, maybe in the agenda will be an opening for knowing better what attributes are going to come up during the brand attributes exercise. So that's a really good insight, Motto.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Motto. Something that we did, and I'll share this because Motto and I, we were partners in an agency. And you remember this, the first meeting worksheet. One of the challenges that I saw with core, and I think it's really important for core practitioners to be familiar with this, is core doesn't have built into it an anchor into your client's why, right? That's something that you guys need to take on. We actually built a kit like design therapy, and that whole process and this fire kit that we have looming is really about that. And it's really a process unto itself. But whenever you're dealing with a client, it is so important that you understand their why. And so Mara and I, we built this document. This was a first meeting document. He's smiling because he remembers it. And I was very adamant about it. And it was because these were some of the challenges that I saw. understanding a client's why, understanding their purpose, understanding their intention and their vision for the company, but also taking the time to parse through, you know, like what brought you to this point, right? Like, how did you get here? Who helped you, you know, as you built this thing, as we're at this point now, like, what is the process, right? There's so much value in understanding that story, and in understanding the intentions of the client, that by the time you get to the business, the how, right? You understand that it's really not about the how, it's about the what. Whatever you're trying to achieve is this thing that's off in the distance. The how, this business, is just a way that they get there. I was talking about this earlier on Ponte la Corvata, and with Alex, and I talked about the story of Zappos. Tony Hsieh, who founded Zappos, his why had nothing to do with making money or selling shoes. It had to do with about delivering happiness and helping people to understand how to become their best selves. That's what it was about. He did that through a company that sold shoes, right? So when you can sit here and understand the purpose and you can understand the vision, then it becomes easier for you as a creative to build a powerful strategy around the business, because then you understand at a deep level what the intention is and why it exists. But I think it's also important to note, sometimes a business is just a business, right? Not everybody has a business that has this deep purpose in it. And while it's important to know that and to understand, like, that's key to having really powerful branding, sometimes a business is just a business. Sometimes some people were like, you know what, I was looking for some money, you know, to build wealth. Someone showed me this way, and this is how I found wealth. But yeah, it's important to keep that distinction in mind.
I'd like to add to that. I think that's a really great point. And I think the whole why I found is I've used it as an anchor point to always refer back to in projects, because especially when you're in ideation phase, like, clients get really excited, like, oh, we could do this, we could do this. And I think it's something to it's always good to refer back to that and be like, does this align with, you know, who you are and what you want to do and where you want to go? So yeah.
Oh, totally, Diane. And that's such an important point. And that's something that clients are always going to do. One thing that I've understood in the nature of client relationships is clients are just always going to try to push the buttons. They're always going to try to test the, you know, the limitations of the relationship. This happens in all relationships. And generally speaking, you know, these operators, they came to you because they're struggling with focus, right? So much about strategy is just about simplifying the vision so that they can focus on the things that they need to execute on all the time. Operators, you know, those who are particularly competitive, they're always looking at, like, oh, well, my competitor's doing that, or look at this new thing that just came out. Like, is this thing, you know, that golden bullet, the silver bullet that's going to solve all my problems? Like, no, you still have to build community and build reputation and do all the hard work. But yes, you know, I love that, using the why to keep the client into subjectivity. Beautiful. Jaja.
Yes, sorry, I just want to ask a question. So I have been using this, our core is absolutely amazing. My client gave me such a terrific feedback. They're like, oh, this is brilliant. They all have they have a buzz, right? So my question is, how do you translate the brand statement to a company vision statement or a mission statement? How do I do that?
Lots of different opinions on this. I'll share my opinion, and actually, let's start with Jose. Jose, why don't you share your thoughts on that?
That's a really great question. You know, one way that I avoid doing the mission statement or the other things is I let them know that this is for internal purposes only, and this is only to define the design and the execution of your website, etc. If you want us to tackle doing a mission statement and those other components, you know, we might be happy to, but we have to clarify whether that's in the scope or not. Mainly because in my experience, that did require some writing and some real kind of like having a copywriter on the project, etc. But one feedback that I got from a marketing VP at a company where we did the brand attributes exercise which is kind of like a mission statement. It's what we do, you know, who do we do it for, and like what are the outcomes that we want to reach. That's the structure of the brand statement, which is like a mission statement. Vision statement would be a little bit broader and shorter, like we want to help, you know, feed the world's hungry or something like that. You know, that's the bigger vision. And then the mission is how we're going to do it, who specifically are we doing it for, and like, you know, et cetera, and what results we're going to get. That's mission. So getting that distinction between mission and vision straight is super important. I avoided doing it, but I did get the feedback from someone who, after we spent an hour and a half or so, or an hour doing the brand statement, he said, you know, we just finished paying a strategy firm $300,000 to do our mission statement, to come up with our mission statement. This is a fairly large, medium size, about 100 million in revenue, manufacturing company in Southern California. And basically he confessed that they paid $300,000 for a mission statement, and that the one we just came up with together was better in an hour and a half. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not charging you enough for this engagement. And that also gives you a sense of relative value, you know, from a strategy firm that just focuses on that to a design firm that was just implementing their web and e-commerce. That's what we were doing. And we weren't getting paid that much even to do it comparative to the other one. So I avoided it, but we've also did it. We also kind of did it for startups who needed that statement to be refined. So either I refined it or I had a copywriter refined it. And then just really understanding the difference between a mission and a vision statement will help you translate the brand statement into a mission statement. It's pretty close already. It just needs to be like massaged to make it external.
Thank you.
I love that, Jose. Here are my thoughts, and then let's open it up to see if anyone here who's had any experience with writing mission or vision statements. When I used the core statement, I called it a positioning statement. So what I said is, you know, this isn't something that is really prepared or ideal for like outward, you know, communication with your audience, because this is really about you internally, like orienting and positioning your culture and the work that you're doing and the impact that you're trying to do it and how it feels, right? I said, this is really great for your employees, right? This is really good for your vendors and your partners so that they can understand like what you exist and like why you exist. Vision statements can definitely be born of that positioning statement. But vision statements, I've always looked at as statements that are horizontal, meaning it's about a legacy that you're leaving, and it's very, very difficult. You'll never be really, truly be able to accomplish that. Apple is really great at that. It's why they have such an innovative culture. It's because everybody shares that vision. And so there's not like one person saying, okay, this is the future. There are all of these people saying, oh, this is a future that we all believe in. Here are some ideas that we have. And so they're constantly having innovation bubble up to the top. A mission statement is different. A mission statement is all about the here and the now, what you are doing today to deliver value to your customer today. And what are you going to do tomorrow to deliver value to your customer tomorrow, right? There's a differentiation in those things. I have generally, you know, I was like the copywriter, you know, for the agency. And so I built mission and vision statements based on brand positioning statements. And that can be really difficult depending on how complex the brand is. But that's my distinction. So the core statement, I've always looked at it as a positioning statement for the brand and like orient them, like wherever they are, here's where you are, here's who you are, this is how you operate. Mission statement, here's the value that you're going to deliver every single day to your customers. Vision statement, here is how we see the future. Here is what we're trying to change for the future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this because so am I right to think, right, for the positioning work I'm doing, I'm okay to not to include mission statement and vision statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And to answer some of the questions in the chat for Dexter, Internal culture, meaning like you experiencing that culture from your perspective, is called EMIC, EMIC. Edic, and they're like super academic terms. Like you only see this in like an anthropology, like textbook or whatever. This is how they reference it. But Edic is to an experience a culture from external, right? It's like an armchair anthropologist. So here's an example. Margaret Mead, who wrote Coming of Age in Samoa, she joined the community. She participated in the rituals. She had sexual relations. She acted as part of the community. That's EMIC, right? So here's an example. All of us right here operating, we're like EMIC. We're all part of the internal culture of the system. Someone who sits on the outside that doesn't join a broadcast, that doesn't engage in the conversations or build the relationships or friendships, right? That sit on the outside, they're EDIC. They're looking from the outward in.
It's beautiful. And I just posted the definitions of positioning, mission, and vision statements, and an article I just found that does a good job at describing how to write a vision statement or a mission statement for those of you that want to. But make sure that if you want to make sure that you're making that distinction in your sales process, it's like, you know, to show your clients the differences between them, and to say that the brand statement is really just an internal mechanism to, you know, guide the process that you're undergoing. Marcio has some other questions, but I want to give precedence to the people that are here. Bobby, anybody who's here who has questions, I can answer his questions also on Facebook too.
Yeah, guys, floor is open. So any challenges that you might be going through in branding, business development?
I'll answer his second question just very quickly while people are getting the courage to jump on. His question was around their user profiles in the kit. There are 3 user profile explanations in the kit itself, but then in the case study, in the way that we did it for Alchemista, there's 4. And I did this kind of grid that we developed during personal core, which was past you, future you, aspirational, and grounding. And the reason why I did that is because as a young entrepreneur, she was starting out. This was her first time doing, you know, a business, and to highlight that she needed, you know, somebody to guide her as a grounding force, and then somebody to aspire to being, you know, in the long term. Like when you are successful, who are you going to be? And describing that, and then that the customer that she was likely going to have was going to be a version of herself. So if you look at startups, you know, a lot of times the founders are solving their own problems and putting them out. So within their own passion and skill level. So if you're a developer and you had an issue with transferring files on a way to a presentation, you might set up Dropbox, right? And that's your startup. So that's the reason why I did that. It came from the hero's journey. It came from the developmental cycle. Now it's confusing in the kit, and I'm probably going to remove it in the next iteration. It's a bit confusing to have a separate explanation for doing 3 basic customer profiles and the 4 that we did for Alchemista. So I might actually structure it a bit more traditionally, but you can do as many as needed. The challenge is that if you have too many user profiles, the business is going to be really fragmented and going in too many directions. That's why we usually try to keep it to 3. And then we try to keep their needs to 3, which is next question is, how do you translate needs into actual ideas and products? And the solution of taking, if a client needs X, you give them a solution to X, and that becomes either a feature or content or something. So, you know, in the case scenario for us here at the Systm, you know, Roxana and I, Mary and Keone were working on a landing page with the Accelerator yesterday. You know, how do we go back to the needs of our customers in order to create particular content or product? One very particular need that came out of my personal core 2 years ago when I did that was the need for meaning in the work, like making the work more meaningful than just like doing production work, you know, for for people in the US, which was something that I witnessed in my trip to Costa Rica and the community there. So the creation of FIRE, the FIRE kit, what we're working on right now, and story, and really design therapy, all those things are a response directly to that, to how do we basically accomplish doing great work that's meaningful to us, that's within our purpose, with people that also share our values. That's really, that profile completely has shifted the way that we're doing what we're doing. And that's an answer to that. Anyway, that was his question. I answered the 3 out of his 4, and let's open it up.
I have a question. Can I ask? I wanted to ask, like, how do you tackle the intentions alignment? Do you just do it before the brand attributes? Because I use the intentions alignment for like a first engagement with clients so that I get to know them better, like what their motivations are, because they're not familiar yet with the framework. And so I use the intentions alignment to kind of extract that from them. But are there other ways to use that maybe, or I don't know, in facilitation, if you have any tips?
I've used it to break down disagreements between individuals. So like problems that they've had between like 2 or more parties, they say, okay, well, what element of the solution is the most important to you? What element of the solution is most important to you? What element of the solution is most important to you? Okay, we're going to create a solution that takes all of these things into account. Here's the solution, right? Now, this doesn't say that any one person is right or wrong, but what this says is here's a solution that we can agree on, and we'll use this, and we'll get the feedback and validate this solution, and then we'll use that information to make the next decision. So I've used that alignment to like break up disagreements. And it's great because it allows for everyone to have impact, feedback, to provide a solution that they think is important. And that like really helps like quell disagreements in a very equitable way. Mary, though, I'd love to see if maybe you have some thoughts on the alignment.
Yeah, I think you can use it like anytime, you know, anytime you sense there's a lack of alignment, even if the meeting that you're just starting is ambiguous, right? And you sense like people may not be there for the same outcome, or that they are not there for the same reason. So just, you know, use that tool as a way to even get what you need done in the meeting, you know, itself. Like find out like what's the one thing. I think Jose, where did he go? Oh, he does that often. He'll be, oh, there you are. The one thing that you want to get out of this meeting is, you know, and then you can see, like, if you have 20 people in a meeting, like, you know, maybe they're all skewed one way or another, or it's all over the chart. And then you can just kind of start to hone in on, you know, what people can agree on is the most important thing to do in that meeting, or in that time that you're going to work together, you know. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yes,
it totally
thank
makes
you.
sense.
And
Thank you,
here's
Agile
the-
Queen.
yeah, here's a little grid, you know, just you can use a grid or use the chat if you're doing it remotely.
Mm-hmm.
You can use a whiteboard.
Yeah, so that exercise really developed ultimately from understanding that sometimes when you walk into a meeting or where you walk into a group, you know, there is a preset agenda, but then there's hidden agendas that people might have.
Totally.
And that people want to get something specifically, and no one wants to be there wasting time, right? So they want to make sure that they're getting their stuff out. So, you know, by forcing them to do, not forcing them, by asking them to say, do 3 things, because they're thinking about it. They're like, and they do 3 things. And then what are 3 things that you want to get out of it? What are 3 things you want to get out of it? And let's say there's 5 people in the meeting.
Yeah.
That's 15 things. And you only have an hour and a half. And I go, okay, we only have an hour and a half. Can you choose 1 out of those 3 that if we got done, you would be happy? So now we have 5 things that we can get done. And we know we're only going to get 3 or 4 maximum, right? So, and I also clarify, you know, if we don't get through everything, we'll put that on the agenda for the next time we meet, because you're assuming that there's a continuation. And that's how I just kind of curtail the horrible, you know, anxiety caused by no agenda in a meeting, or by the shit that I came to get from it is not being done. So that's really the design of that.
Yeah, you could like dot vote or use priority, like, you know, ranking to just get it, you know, organized once you have all the inputs from the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
agenda.
true. So many people don't know what the heck they're doing when they arrive at a meeting. Like, what is this for?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. Richard, you've got your hand raised. Why don't you step to the stage, brother?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'll take my hand down as well. My question is in regards to synthesizing all the information into a creative brief. Thank you, Jose. You sent me the brief recently. I appreciate it. I have one for Alchemista and one for Chakras, and they're distinctly very different. I noticed the Alchemista one, it seems to me, is just a compile of all the exercises as to a final document that to be presented, versus the Chakra ones, which has a lot more of messaging involved into it, I saw, and a lot more touch points. So my question is revolving around the brief, depending, obviously it seems the Chakra process was much more involved just because it has all the copywriting involved in it. Essentially, what are you supposed to include in the brief before you hand off to your designer? Like, what should it include? Should it just be just the highlights? Are you showing screenshots of the entire process from your keynote deck? Or I'm always having issues translating it to hand off to someone else.
So to be honest, you know, that was one of my biggest struggles because we were working really fast and I didn't want to sit there and like write all of the ways that you could translate it to the brief. Mauro has an amazing brief for Corbis where he, very much inspired by Keone and by Jeff Silva, they put a lot of additional components into it. So if you're in the core tribe, maybe we can make Mauro's Corbis brief part of actually our accelerator program, because there's going to be a lot of brief examples. I have so many briefs and I do so many different things, but it's not lazy. I'm really trying to just very clearly hit the things that need to be done. So when I brief designers, let's say for a software project, what I would do is I would give them the minimum they needed for it, which was a wireframe of the page that I needed them to do. If they were doing a stylescape, I would give them the stylescape format and examples of other stylescapes. And then I would show the brand attributes and I would show all the components. But instead of writing like the brief on like how to approach it and translate it, I would do did you not get the one for consensus? Like I would do a summary sheet where I gave them the designers, I gave them a color palette. I would choose three. I would give 3 versions or 3 directions to 3 different designers. That's how I did it. You might have one designer that's doing a few versions. You might be doing a version and the designer's doing the other version. And what I would do would be a summary sheet of like some references, the color palette, some fonts that they can use that I myself chose as a creative director based on 3 attributes. And I made it 3 different attributes in each one, right? So what I'm setting up is an experiment. It's like I use the scientific method, which Hania can back me up here, which is basically here's three different versions. And then once we had stylescapes for 3 different versions around the same brand, slight differences maybe in the theme. Oh, I would also give each one a theme. So like if you see the consensus one, and there's a post in the core tribe that has the link to it, or I can post it in here actually too. The goal for me was to have each of those directions in front of the client so that they would actually say, I like this about this one, I like this about this one, and I like this about this one. And I asked the question, if you had to choose one stylescape with a few little attributes or aspects from another one, which one would you choose? And people would say, oh, I would go with this one definitely, but I want this part from the other one. So the brief to the designers, I actually segmented it to get prepared to do stylescapes. If there's something more specific that we're doing, like packaging or like, you know, if you look at the briefs that I did for the Everyone rebrand, I did a bunch of different briefs. I did them just for example, for illustration. So I would just show them the core components. Here's that brand attributes. Here's who the customers are. And then I would choose a few attributes for them. Then I would show some references. I want it in this general style. And then I would maybe do a sketch of like what I was thinking and put that into a deck and just give it to the illustrator, right? Then I would do another one for the people that were doing the social media campaign. And then I would do a different one because there were so many people working on it. When you're doing a small project, then you want to potentially put all of the references color palettes, etc., into the brief that you're giving your creatives. And then the question is, well, why don't you let them choose? I also give them the option. I say, this is just a suggestion. I'll let you interpret the attributes yourself. I'm curious, Mauro, with leading teams, and for Corvus, how have you done that?
Thank you, Jose.
You're on mute, yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys. Jose, can you specify the question again?
Well, yeah, he wants to know he wants to know, like, what do you do in your brief, like for your Corvus brief, like what were the things that you did in it? And if you want to show him, you can also show him.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to actually show that page.
So let's do this, Mauro, while you're bringing that up.
Yeah,
Richard, I wanted to add just a couple real quick points. So I was the one that did that, the chakras deck that you're looking at. And I think what you're looking at, I'm not sure which version you're looking at, but that was the actual, that was more than a creative brief. I believe what you were looking at was the brand brief. This is everything that we've done synthesized. This is all of my research. This is all of the touch points. I think it had like hashtags. It had, yeah. So what you're looking at was the final brand brief. So that wasn't the creative brief. That is after synthesizing all of the strategy, taking all of the elements, knowing all of the work that they were doing. So they were doing social, they had web, they had a delivery service, you know, they had, I think they had someone in PR as well at the time. They had all of these different people that were working. So that brand brief was really like all of the strategy synthesized into something that I could hand off to a team and say, okay, you guys have due north, you have all of the navigation necessary for this work. We can step back and go away. But Mauro, do you have it up?
Yeah, I do.
And let me make sure that, yeah, are you able to share?
Okay, let me.
One thing I want to add, just as Mauro is getting set up. So let's be really clear what the role of the briefs are. There is the role of the brief to inform the client of what you said in the meeting, in the work session, in the facilitated work session where you came up with it. That's one part. To confirm this is what you said. So that's one. That's why you see the one for Alchemisa just at a bare minimum. And I do have to add a brief to that actually, because it's something that would be important versus just giving out examples in the core community, which helps, but it would be great to have it inside the kit itself. There is to inform designers as to direction, what to do. That's another role. But then there's the broader, like, you know, brand brief, as Keone's saying, when you're doing a multifaceted campaign and having that integrated, you know, into what social media might be like, your point of view, examples, references, strategy. I mean, for everyone, we did like a lot of work with the CMO, and they did brand pillars. There's all these different components that get done. So there's operational to guide the team, and there is confirmation to confirm from the client. Ideally, you are always confirming with the client the direction that you want to take, whether it's social media or better yet, involve them in that if they're really inclined, or if you're working directly for the marketing team or a marketing executive at the company. When you're working with a CEO or a founder or a solopreneur, it's a little bit different. They're expecting you to really do a lot of the work. So the Stylescape acts as the place to put your recommendations and your suggestions again, and then you would have to brief, you know, the team that's doing those. So it really is contextual to both the scale and the size of your project and who you're briefing, right? The client, the designer, the team, and it's a living document. These are living documents. I showed the briefs over and over and over and over and over and over again, and added a bunch of extra pages on something like, you know, because I was on retainer at everyone. The same thing, Mauro Corvus, he's on a monthly retainer, and he's been working with them for a while now. So the brief is a living document, but take it away, Mauro.
Can I still can't share my screen?
Oh, Jose, can you make him a co-host?
So this brief, I'm gonna walk through it really quickly. I'm just gonna show you the synthesized adjectives. walk you through some of the research that I did, and then the process of the translation. So just what's the mood board and the way that I translated the adjectives based on the research and based on the adjectives that I already had. So Corvus is a Mexican eyeglasses company. And let me see if I can share. Oh, I think someone else is sharing. It says you cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing.
Try it
Or am
now.
I already sharing? Let me see. All right, there we go. Excellent. Okay, here it is. So this is the attributes for Corvus. So let me show you the logo. Corvus. And what I did here, okay, so I synthesized the adjectives. So I know that the culture, it's, yeah. I need a little help. I don't know if I need to translate this. But I separate everything in the five adjectives. Some of them are 6, some of them are 4, and the general position and statement. So what I did, understanding the context of Corvus, understanding a little bit more about the story, going into the why of the company, right? So this is something that I did initially before jumping into strategy, was understanding, okay, where are they coming from? And they have a very rich story and something that is very, very personal, as well as there's a big reason why the crow is such a big part of the brand, and has to do with the owner's late son and his fascination and love for crows. Now, crows are very enigmatic, they're very mysterious, they're highly intelligent, and this is some of the research that I did before, as well as understanding other brands that were doing something similar. What was the reasoning for starting their specific branding and the type of glasses. Then from here, understanding now the adjectives, understanding the story, really diving deep into the reason for this specific icon, I came up with these three different concepts. So each one has their own narrative. So this one is based on the Norse mythology of Hugin and Munin. This is more based around the Nordic culture, something a little bit more general. And this was all based around the nido, which is the, what's say in English, nido? Nest, sorry. Write it so I don't forget it. Okay, so going back into the translation now of this specific direction. So I tried to find anything that had, the symbol of the crow or anything close to that, anything that has some sort of relation. So I found this specific tale of through Norse mythology, what it means in that story, who they are, these two little characters, and how they relate to everything that's around them, right? So we know that Keone and Munin, they were this very enigmatic, mysterious birds that flew over the world and related this information to Odin. So they were very mysterious, they were enigmatic, they were visionary. So vision was a big key for this. Then I found, okay, how do I translate something that is mysterious? How do you translate something that is possibly it's enigmatic or is visionary? So I feel, okay, putting that into a context. I did a research for different images. I feel, okay, there's gonna be a lot of black. I want to have some contrast, right? So Gribbin and Munin, they both have their own attributes. They're fairly contrasting in what they do and how they relate to the information that they give over to Odin. So I know that I wanted to use a word like contrast and duality. I wanted it to be very pattern heavy,
Can you show the other three? Show this one,
yes,
and show the next one. Like, I just want to see the differences between them. Like Like on 2, like what were the brand attributes you chose for 2? Were they the same? Okay,
So
intelligent.
for this
So you're
one,
doing it the way I do it. Yeah, got it.
yeah. So this one focusing purely on the Nordic culture, right? So just diving a little bit deeper into architecture, interior design. So I'm using words such as intelligent, resourceful, collaborative, and elegant. So what I'm able to extract from that, I know that Nordic culture is very minimal, it's very natural. There's a lot of light. It's very light.
What's interesting that you're doing there is that this is
Yeah.
like a commentary during football games, and Keone, is that you're actually putting the attributes of the concept, then the brand. So the concept is Nordic culture, then the intelligent, resourceful, elaborate, and elegant. Those are the brand attributes that you all did together, and then you're saying what those attributes would be translated. He's putting the keys to translation. It should be minimal, natural, and light. So like he's interpreting the attributes and then showing references to, I mean, this is pretty on point. Continue, sir.
Then from actually having all this information, I go into what would be the different opportunities for each one, right? So maybe subtle colors, textures, minimal design, strength, typography, muted colors. And I try to do this with every
single one. So Nido, and then what's the 4th one?
Yes.
Did you actually do stylescapes, or did you go straight? So basically, the client chose. Which one did the client choose here?
So he chose actually Nest. This was his primary, and then he loved the concept of Gribbin and Mooning. So what I did was that I combined both of them. So still using the Nest word, the concept, I took adjectives from the 3, so adaptable, social, exclusive, mysterious, enigmatic, and visionary, translating that into something that was visual, so I know what organic could look like, what natural, elegant, contrast, duality, patterns, and simple. I know how to translate that visually. Now taking, okay, what are the opportunities that I have based on those specific words? I know that I want to use geodesic architecture. I want to use texture, shadows, organic elements, elegant typography, and
points of view that are high, like high horizons. So what's really interesting about this, he's giving creative direction in the brief, even before stylescapes. This is saving a lot of time and effort and money. Because then you don't have to kind of do the stylescapes. What I would suggest for the system, instead of doing, really evolved like crazy stylescapes, is that you just do this with Colleen, and then that kind of helps us. For Roxana, helps us with everything. What's 46? What else do you have in there? Let's try it. It's 12:13, and we want to end on time or a little early today.
This is priorities.
Let me see how you showed the priorities. Like open up, unfurl the. Yeah, so here you have basically the rest of it. You did have a little bit of story at the beginning, and then, you're crossing out what you already worked on. This is your to-do list, basically. Yeah, you're working very collaboratively with your client, and then using this as a blueprint. Yeah, it's a roadmap. It's exactly how I used it this is exactly how I used it for everyone. But I also made a bunch of other briefs for different components of the project and had to work a lot with marketing to do components. How helpful is this, Richard?
Very helpful. Thank you. I really appreciate the whole presentation of the attributes with the mood board, a little history on it. It just adds so much more depth to it. I really enjoy that. I think I'm going to steal that.
Steal away. That's the whole point.
Actually, I put this thing together yesterday. I was just sketching this out when I was explaining this to one of my designers, and I was going through, okay, the three parts of core, which is adjectives, profiles, and priorities, and really giving them a little bit more context of what adjectives can be used for, what profiles can be used for, and what priorities can be used for. Right, going through adjectives can help us guide messaging, the concept, the visual concept, marketing, and the customer journey. Illustrating the customer journey is actually up here. So this is really understanding brands, how are they being searched for, what happens when they find them, and how do they love the brand. So using, again, ad tips, and then really breaking that down to the adjectives that we just,
This is a really important exercise, and a lot of people ask why we did it, why I put it in there. Is exactly the way you're using it. You can then really have a guide, misterioso, mysterious, belonging, and and the impact, exclusive. You'll have exclusive look. You're gonna belong to an exclusive club. So it sets positioning really clearly with the attributes. I love this diagram. We should put this diagram into the new kit. So taking note of that. But then you have, let me see your user profiles. Do you have them in there? Yeah, one thing to note also too, you can format it your style, and make it as tight, clean as, generally got it. So you didn't prioritize the top 3, but you're also, how are you prioritizing what the focus is in terms of features, and just basically you're assessing what they need and you're just basically kind of pushing towards that? Or did you use the, I like the values, how you put values on there.
So yeah, because we're trying to sell glasses, right? And we're trying to do a pretty wide net by understanding where we need to throw those nets as well. We need to define really who are the people who have been buying this product and who's really getting that interest. So understanding each generation. So now that we're selling to Generation Z, to Millennials, and Generation X, what is the specific values to each one of those generations? From there, then we went a little bit more specific. So Generation X, we did the specific person. We said, okay, he's 45, he's married, this is his history, this is his necessities and possible problems. This is the way that we can solve those issues. And it's really about understanding those values, right? And we see those values reflected in the impact narrative and in the data matching. This is where we can take, okay, the millennials, what is it that they're looking for, or what values they want, right? And they are. We know that they're exigentes, they're very picky. They know what they want, and they want stuff that's really high quality. They're very open, they're very empathetic, and they're entrepreneurs, right? So they're very business oriented. They're looking for the newest thing. They want to jump into every business opportunity that there is.
So I want to highlight something here, and it's in Spanish, but for those of you who are asking questions about this exercise in general, if you look at the top 3 revenue priorities, selling glasses, swag and loyalty programs, those are the things that are going to create repeat customers, the things that are going to create, different components. And then you look at each user profile, which are also divided here generationally, and have the attributes or values of what they're looking for, and then you brainstorm solutions to that. That's really the point. The point is, how do we get more glasses on Generation X, right? Or how do we get more? It's beautiful. I mean, you also have the benefit to have been when we taped the new core kit. You were actually in the room, so I was explaining it, and we didn't put those videos of me explaining it into the. Maybe we should put the videos of me explaining the exercise into the exercise. That would be a novel thing to do for the kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the video, so.
Yeah. So yeah, we're about 20 minutes over, so let's land this thing. Mato, thank you so much for sharing this. We're definitely going to do a deeper dive into the briefs and some of the exercises for sure. There's a lot of game in that presentation, y'all. Mato is a master designer. He's designed, some of the world's most innovative brands. And he's got a ton of experience, Jose, myself, Jeff. So you're really looking at like a Jedi master right now, and you're kind of looking in his workshop and how he builds his lightsaber. This is really powerful stuff. So Mato, thank you so much, man. Always proud to see your work, man. I'm just oh, that's my boy. Oh, that's what I like to see. So yeah, I'm going to normally we would do insights, but we're running a little bit late. So what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap, and let's make sure that we've got all the things going.
Yeah, get some music. But, it'd be interesting in the chat, or even a few people, what they got out of the session today. Every session is unique. Every session is, based on, the questions. And I'm curious from Richard or from whoever, what they got out of it.
Yeah, so let's talk about the upload for a few minutes, and let's ask the folks what kind of what key takeaway from today's conversation are you guys excited to share about?
Are we okay to talk?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an open floor.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was typing.
I was just about to type. I was saying, the session just brings so much clarity. Like when I'm using the core, I just, when you're talking to yourself, am I doing the right thing? So I'm kind of using it and using this by asking myself a question and using this session to use the chance to get a chance to learn more and just get more clarity on my question. So it really, really helps me a lot. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Jaja. Pape.
Richard, go first.
Okay, cool. Appreciate it. Sorry, I just raised my hand. I just want to say thank you. Even though I joined in late, I got a whole lot of value really fast. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mauro, for sharing your deck. I really loved the whole attribute mood boards, and then that I think accelerates it really fast. And also Jose and Keone explained that the whole brief is a living document, and depending who you're sending the brief off to changes the entire context of the brief, and depending what stage of the brief, that actually clarifies a lot, because I'm thinking that there's only just one, and there isn't. There's several different kinds depending who you're handing it off to. So I highly appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Richard. Pape.
Yeah, for me also the fact that the brief is a living document, and it's also like there's a correlation between core and the brief. And the way I do it is for me, core is the document where I'm creating the brief with the client through an alignment. And it's just basically what we get from the core framework is just the beginning, but then you can open it in so many different ways. And I remember during circles, Keone, you did something that was super amazing, that you chose the attributes and you started looking for the roots of these, like etymologically roots, where does this word come from? And you ask questions like, how can I translate this into design? How does this, and you start doing like literally the translation, because I think that's the key word for this, is like, how do you translate the ideas of the client into words, and how do you translate that to words that can help the designer work? Because, and also something that I noticed here is that the brief is not to control and put your hands around the designer, it's just to give them a guide and let them do the work. Because if not, what we're preaching about culture is if there's no trust in the designer, why are you working with him? So it's also like just an open conversation. And yeah, I would say it would be really awesome to see again that deck from Circles, Keone, because it helped a lot. And yeah, also, as I said, a confirmation that I've been doing it right. I think the last brief I did, it has so many relations to Mauro's brief, and it just makes me so happy. Just his is beautiful. Mine is not that pretty.
It's Mauro is one of the best pretty makers that I know. So, he's up there. But it's really always about the content, Mauro will testify to this. I have made some of the most atrocious decks in the world. The most atrocious. But they're always significant because the content is always on point, right? It's always
it
about
just comic sense.
Oh yeah. But to your point, Pape, and this is a conversation that Mauro and I are having. And we just need to figure out a timing and how to make this work. But we want to start doing a broadcast on translation specifically. Mato learned a lot from me. And, you talked about it, when I do translations, I actually start looking at the root of the word. I look at the history of the word. I look about the true meaning of the word, how culturally it has been interpreted through language and across, different communities. And that's where I like to root my translation in. Mato has taken that and he's added a whole another level to it. So yeah, we'll definitely
Mauro clearly has worked with you, with Jeff, with me, and like he's blending it all into his own unique sauce, which is something that's important for everyone to understand, that as you do it more and more, you begin to do it your way. My way is usually shorter and really fast, and I record videos and I put it out, and we're working really kind of fast to get to the results because I worked with startups, and and I also have the Jack Sparrow confidence of landing the direction. One way that we started doing it at some point was that we actually had an art show for the client with all the directions, all the references, and like a really cool wall when we were in a physical office. Now we're not, so it's harder to do. But the point is to have a conversation with your client, that they're involved, that they are like participating in the design process. They can't design, but you can design with them, because design is not just putting pen to paper. Design is really the decision making and the planning at every stage of what it is that you're going to do. And part of that involves this whole rigmarole of doing whatever you want to call it. You want to call it strategy, you want to call it defining what it is that you're going to do, you call it collaborative design. You can call it many things. Design thinking is a big part of what that category is. But really ultimately is have a conversation with your clients. Make them involved, make it interactive, show them stuff, give them options, like make them enjoy being with you and like, oh my God, that was so much fun. That was so creative. That was the best project we've ever done. Because what they're used to, what clients are used to is telling a designer something, the designer goes away and comes back, and that wasn't exactly what they were thinking. So by doing this middle part of the process, you're ultimately mitigating the risk of just presenting. The last thing I'll say, Roxana the other day, she felt like she didn't make enough progress, and she set up a call and we just talked it over. And I told her, yeah, that's part of the process. Let's just talk it over if something's not clear. It's really about just not being afraid of whether you're right or wrong. It's of letting your client and your collaborators contribute to that answer, and be honest and open with them, like, oh, I'm thinking this, but I haven't made enough progress or whatever. What do you think? Showing them. I actually texted the CEO at the time, or the founder of everyone, like ideas as I'm doing them. I would shoot my screen and would say, what do you think about this? And she was always, I didn't do it every day, like 5 times a day, but like whenever I had a doubt and I just wanted to check in with her, I would text it to her and she's like, yes, or no, I don't like it. She's very honest. And that's really getting your client enrolled or engaged in the process and in who you are, and they'll love you for that.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that, Jose. Powerful insights. So guys, we're gonna step away from, or we're gonna close down today's session. We're a little bit over. We try to keep it an hour, and here we are, an hour and a half afterward. But it's just, there's so much value, like core is so deep. There's so many different ways that you can really wield it. And it's a practice, it's a living process, and you are constantly taking from other masters, you're incorporating it into your practice, and then you're validating it in real world projects and real world branding. So let's bring this to a close. Today's episode of Core After Hours is, of course, brought to you by Core, and you can check it out at coreismagic.com. We invite for you guys to connect. We're a community here. Connect with us on Instagram, connect with us on Facebook, connect with us on Twitter. Here are our social media contacts. And for those of you guys in the community, post your Instagrams and your Facebooks and your Twitters in the chat as well. You know, we'd love to connect. We support each other's work. You know, we're always building the engagement. And yeah, so just some updates really quickly for the Accelerator program. We're working on the landing page right now, which is really exciting. So we want to try to get that up in the next 2 weeks. A lot of the content that we talked about, the briefs, statements of work, decks, you know, exercises, worksheets, you're going to find all of these things in the Accelerator program. And so as we leave, we always invite you to like and subscribe. And that's the episode today, guys. Much love, y'all. Really glad to have you guys with us. Hope that today's session was full of value. Diane, you know, thank you so much for your feedback. Motto as well, super powerful. Dexter, Pape, always a joy to have you in here. Richard, you know, thank you for those powerful questions. Motto over there, you know, carefully placing his leaf on his forehead. But yeah, you know, glad to see you all. Adriana, you know, yo, what's up? Bobby, newcomer, glad to have you here, man. You know, don't be afraid to hop in the conversation. The water's fine. And on that note, y'all take care. Peace, y'all.